Hi, this is your host, Quanisha Green, your Black Woman CEO coach and the founder of the Black Woman Rise movement. And welcome to the Black Woman CEO podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping Black women entrepreneurs to get paid to do what they love, own their time, and achieve financial freedom. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Woman CEO Expert Series and Podcast. I'm your host, Quanisha Green. And today we have on the line one of my great friends and sorors, Dr. Christi Monk. Hey, Dr. Christi.
Hey, Quanisha.
I'm so excited to do this interview with you.
Me as well.
You will all learn about Dr. Christi's awesomeness in a second. But I always like to start with just how I meet our guests here for all the listeners. And Dr. Christi and I actually met through the Happy Black Woman community. It was Launch Your Business. What was that, 2 years ago now?
Yes.
Yes, and then we both joined the Happy Black Woman Mastermind, and then we found out we were sorors. And one thing I really appreciate from Dr. Christi, other than her awesomeness, like she stands in her power all day long and encourages other women to do the same, and she'll talk about her confidence, expertise in a minute. But, you know, one thing I was always told growing up that I was very direct, and I thought I was direct until I met you.
Okay.
If you ever want to know how it is, but it's done from a place of love, just go call Dr. Christi, and you never have to guess if you ever want to know something. I don't know if it's the Texan, but it has like a sweetness because it's a Southern belle in you, and it's just great. So I just love that you are always like very direct, tell people like it is. You know, there's no pretenses, but it's done in love. So that's one thing I always love about you, Dr. Christi.
Well, thank you. I mean, it didn't always start out that way, so let me tell you that. But what I can say is, like you, most people like me for my honesty. And I think the one thing you can do and should do with people that are coming to you for advice, people that you care about, period, you should just tell them the truth in love. Now, what they do with it, you know, that's a whole nother thing. But when it's coming from a place of good intention, all you can do is just say, you know, I'm glad you told me. I didn't know. Nobody ever told me that. So it can be a blessing and a curse, but I've learned to use my directness as a blessing to others.
Yes, it definitely is a blessing. So thank you for at least bestowing that upon our friendship. I always appreciate that. So I guess let's jump into having our Black Woman CEO listeners learn about you. And as everyone knows, I love to start with the who you be, right? So how would you describe yourself beyond what you do? Because we'll get into that next.
So I would describe myself like any other woman. You know, I've dealt with insecurities. I've actually figured out who I was through a plethora of things, but it wasn't until the last 2 years or so that I was really able to own who I was and what I was called to do, because I know one of the things that you talk about a lot is purpose, and that's one of the driving forces behind what I do as well. But who I am a friend, I am a professor, I'm a coach, I'm a business owner, I am a whole bunch of things. But what I know about me is that I've been called to help women really step into their greatness and help them. I've kind of changed it, because what I will say, who I become more holistic, because I started out with Finding the Real You, and now I've morphed into the Workplace Leadership Institute. But all of that has an underlying element of confidence. So I basically help women make bold career moves, but I focus on building their confidence first, because you can't be ready to move into the next level of life. And a career could be at your job, it could be starting your own business. But if you don't have the confidence just to step out there and take the chance, you'll forever be stuck. And so I was able to mold into this woman that I am now, mainly stepping into my confidence and being able to share the power of being confident with other women.
I love that you said become, because that's one thing I believe in. Ask people who you be, is that we're always in our beingness, right? We're always in this presence, or you can say stage of becoming, right? It's not static, and when we tap into that space, that's another place where we can draw our power and our confidence from. So
Right.
I know you started to mention your expertise around confidence. So tell us more about the work that you do and what is your mission?
So what my mission is to help women become more productive, effective, confident, and influential contributors within their workplace and in their communities. And part of that is understanding who they really are. And one of the things I don't believe a lot of people realize is that you're either an introvert or an extrovert, and the omnivert is in the middle. But I teach women how to own who they are, because I was told that I was an extrovert. So I'm putting in all these leadership positions, and I got to a point in my life where, you know what, I actually don't like this. This is not who I am. I'm not fueled by making commands and demands in the workplace. I am all about helping build the relationships. I'm not a taskmaster, but I had to come to realize that, and knowing what your core values are will help you see how you fit in or you don't, because it's all about alignment. And what the Confidence Suite does is take all the elements of confidence, being able to recognize what confidence is, being able to see where your relationships may have diminished your confidence, being able to step into a place where you're being bold about who you are, and then leading through that simply because now you know who you are and what you stand for. And all of that needs to, your core values need to align with the ultimate happiness that you deserve in life. And then the Confidence Suite morphed into another element, which is now the Workplace Leadership Institute. Mm-hmm. And that's where I help organizations create cultures of connectedness, mainly focusing on their diversity and inclusion efforts to help minority women to become the leaders that they've been destined to be. And that's where we amplify their influence. So, but you have to know how to become that. And one of the things that we don't learn in college, or we don't know to seek out in organizations, is how do you use your influence without compromising your core values. So that's who I am and what I do.
Thank you for sharing that. So I feel like in that you told us about the expertise, and feel free to share more if you feel like there's more around the expertise, but why do you find that this work is even important in the first place? We can be passionate about stuff, of course, and go study it, but why this work? Why is it needed in the world?
Well, one, it's needed now more so than ever because we know women, especially African-American women, are underrepresented in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And statistics show that a woman will only apply for a position if she's 100% sure that she'll get it. That goes back to confidence. And a male will apply for a position even if he's not qualified. He's just going to do it. Men do it 100% of the time, but what do? They've learned the power of networking, which means building key relationships within the workplace. Even if they don't know, they fake it till they make it, and then they actually leverage key relationships to get where they need to be. And that's one of the things that I believe women miss in the workplace because we want to always be perfect, Mm-hmm. So if we're going to show up, all of our ducks have to be in a row. And I think that black women are more so at a disadvantage because of just certain stereotypes and stigma. But for me, how I realized that this was even more so important, I got laid off of 2 jobs, 2 years back to back. And the first time, they told me that I wasn't the person for the job. And I had been there before this man, and I will say this man came in, and I had a great relationship with my team. Everything was going fine, but he would make these comments, and I'm like, okay, well, he can't be talking about my performance because there's nothing wrong. And then one day he called me into the office, and he just told me I wasn't the person for the job. Now, granted, I didn't understand it, but then there was a piece of me, which part of my tagline is be confident, be bold, be you. I was like, well, if I'm not the person for the job, I'm not going to try to fight against his perception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he wanted to write me up, and I wasn't having that. Texas is an at-will state, and so had I let him do that, you can fire me or let me go at any time without just cause. So fast forward, I had a good 3 months off, enjoyed my time off. Then it happened again 2 years later.
Wow.
And it was a man again. Same thing. And what happened in this situation is he tried to place the blame on me for something he didn't do. And when we were like on this conference call, and, I pretty much held him accountable, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, I'm no longer needed. So then I kind of walked away from that because I was like, okay, here we go again. And when he said, here's the severance and all of that, I was like, okay. So there's something central here. And the only thing that was central was me. And so when I moved into a whole nother industry, I had realized I had shrunk back. Because why? I never really addressed my managers. I just willingly walked away. So I never really tried to receive feedback, and I never really asked the questions. And I never really, when I think about it, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a woman in a position of power to tell me what I was doing right or what I wasn't doing right, how I can become more proficient and credible in my job. None of that. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to the job that I have now, I received feedback that, oh, you're passive. They think that you're passive, which doesn't go with the directness that you spoke of, right?
Right.
So I learned to shrink back because who I was intimidating to others. And what I learned to do was now to ask questions and build those key relationships, because I was like, they don't teach you about networking. They don't teach you about building key relationships and understanding what influence is and how to play the game of politics without feeling like you are brown-nosing or compromising who you are. And I felt that there needed to be programs around teaching women how to amplify their influence in the workplace without, one, having to always seek out a mentor, but knowing the key elements that are necessary in order to be seen as credible, get paid their worth, and being sought out for key projects. And then that's why I created Amplify Your Influence, which is the main program that I have right now, because we don't learn those things in college, and we don't know or have a lot of us don't have people in our lives who have even made it to a certain level, you know, in their careers. So I think it's equally as important now, especially with the issue with women's rights and, discrimination. And I have my doctoral degree in organizational leadership studies. So I'm all about leadership. And I did my dissertation on workplace bullying, which means I know the importance of being treated right, but what we know is that most organizations do not have any policies about mistreatment or the consequences that go along with that. So it's easier for minorities, and especially women, to fall into that category of mistreatment and not knowing how to speak up for herself. So it's twofold for me. I want your voice to be heard. I say be the voice and not the echo. But you have to be confident enough to be able to do that. So that's why I
so
am
much.
passionate about what I do.
Thank you. You brought up so much because, one, I love that you help to work on the internal stuff, right? Because, one thing you had to do was look at your background, right, to see why were you showing up a certain way. But I love that you talked about the power of mentorship, right? Often we need to have someone, whether it's a coach, a mentor, that can be the reflection that we need to see, because it's hard for us to see ourselves, right? And see how we're showing up. And then you were able to make some decisions now that you realize, like, wait, I'm a direct person, but I noticed in this setting, this is how I was showing up. And, in my research particularly, and this is around women, but particularly Black women, we are taught to put our heads down, right? Put your head down, focus on your work, and then we're taught we'll get rewarded. And that doesn't, like how you said, men are taught to network and leverage relationships. That's not what actually putting our head down and just doing the work. That might have worked in school, right, because of the way the system is set up for rewards, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the workplace.
Right.
So I love that you're bringing all that up. And, like, although there are these larger systems of oppression or bias that influences how that shows up, like you said, there's not even policies around mistreatment. At the end of the day, it still then comes back. Of course, we can always change the system. So, right, there's folks doing that work. But at some point, there is a personal responsibility to see the holes that you have in maybe your professional demeanor, right, or training or skills, and then make some choices on, are you going to do the inner work? Are you going to do professional development and self-development? And it sounds like that's what you're helping women with.
Yes, absolutely, because a lot of times we look to our friends to give us advice and tell us what they would do, but 9 times out of 10, your friends are in the same situation you are in or worse. So you have to change your surrounding. Personal development should be important to every woman. It just should be. And people in general, but I think more specifically now that women need to do everything that they can to better themselves. Even if it's not for a career, but just to say, hey, I'm in a better position than I was last week, and whatever that position is in life.
Well, I'm a big fan of personal and professional development, so I totally agree. So how did you come? So I get the motivation now, right, for maybe starting your own business and doing this work. It was your doctoral studies. But how did you come to this place of saying, I'm an expert and a CEO, like really owning those two roles for yourself?
Well, I think it mainly came from when people continued to come to me for advice. What should I do? And even before I had, received my, doctoral degree and all of the other certifications that I've had, me being in a position to know that there wasn't anything out there around the personal development, specifically for African American women. And me living it, one, adds to me being an expert, but I don't like to call myself an expert because an expert means that you're tapped out with the information. I am a lifelong learning expert, which I know as time change, people change, just like what you say, systems change. You have to always stay abreast of what's going on. I mean, you have the millennials and you have the baby boomers, so there's so much of a disconnect when it comes to what drives a person. So you always have to be understanding, who your clients are, who's coming to you, to kind of help you see. And being a CEO, you have to be able to, one, see what the need is, but strategically know who your client is. And in being a CEO, you also have to have the right support system and team around you. Because one of the things that I learned from you as I was coaching with you is you have to be really, really clear about who you serve and why you serve them. Because a lot of times people will start a business thinking that, oh, this is what I want to do, but it doesn't really align with your purpose, and especially if you're only doing it for the money. So me being a CEO also takes me back to being a servant leader. Because it's not just about me. It's about the people whose lives I help transform. And as a CEO, I'm thinking about the people, and I guess you could think of it in the context like you do at work, where, you know, you have the hierarchy, the CEO, you know, the higher up in an organization you get, the less connected you are to people. But my spin on being a CEO, my people, coaching clients, just women that I encounter, they're my front line. They're what's important to me as it relates to me helping them get to the next level in their career that they should be at. So that's more or less how I tie me being an expert to me being a CEO in my own business, because just like anybody else, I have to have a coach. I have to have someone to say, Christi, do you think that makes sense? Because I can't go at it alone. And CEOs need help as well. And I just kind of want to thank you publicly for that, because I remember when we did my VIP day, and I know I was all over the place. It's like, well, no, Christi, let me bring you back in. And doing that, it helped me really see who is it that I really want to work with. And I had a lot of things that I wanted to do, but I had to align those things for a certain time and a certain place and for a certain purpose. So I think just being able to walk in the shoes of those that I serve, it lends itself to me being an expert and the CEO of my business.
Well, thank you so much for those powerful and kind words. You know, one thing we've talked about often in our coaching together, and folks, I'm pretty sure listeners have heard me say this in different capacities, is that clarity is so important. And for me, it's the 3 C's, the clarity, confidence, and courage, right? Because once you get the clarity, then you can feel confident, and then you go on to be courageous to go out there and do the work that you want to do. And one thing that I always loved about you, and you still are this way, is that you're a visionary. Right, and like most visionaries, like all these ideas come at you, and you see all these different angles, and it's coming down to like the practical and say, okay, Christi, let's focus on this one part first. All right, let's start on this powerful piece, and when you really honed in on the confidence suite, right, and the confidence part, and to be brilliant and bold and brave and, you know, and beautiful, like all those pieces, it was like almost I saw that aha moment in your work once you were like, this is it, right? Like, and this is where I'm going to focus. And of course, like, there's been branches off of that, like you talk about the organizational piece, but still at that foundation is that very clear who are you helping, right? That one clear ideal client. And that's such a must-have for those who are out there who are thinking, like, how do I start my business, or why is my business not growing? It's because you might not have that clarity that Christi just mentioned.
Yeah, and I think what's also key to mention is that clarity is an evolving process. Because, like I said, I started off with find the real you, and then it morphed into other things. But taking my time, because there were times where I stopped because I had to say, this doesn't feel right. And being a CEO, you have to know. You have to have a vision. You have to, I look at it just like a SWOT analysis. What's working? Where are you weak? Where are the holes? You know, and being able to get more clear about that and bringing people into your fold who can see things that you can't is one of the best things that anybody can do. And that even goes to coaching, because we think we know it all. And a lot of times we're so tied to our vision and we're married to it. And that can be a detriment if you're not open and willing to listen to other people and to get their guidance and their advice. So I think that's important as well.
All right. So I'm glad you mentioned that for you that clarity had basically iterations, right? And there's two things I like to say. Clarity is a precursor to action, but you also need action to get further clarity. So your story is just a very good example of that. So, but Christi, how did you make the decision just in the first place to start your business? Like, we definitely get your background story, and you could have just said, I'm going to go look for a new job and do this on the side. But what made you say, okay, I'm starting a business, is going to focus on this?
Well, because I knew I was called for so much more. Working the 9 to 5 and just sharing my genius at an hourly rate, in the sense of, they told me, this is what we're going to pay you to do X. And when you think about the value that you're adding to someone else's bottom line, it makes you say, I can do that. And it was really, really scary, because I've always said, I'm going to start my own business, I'm going to be a millionaire, all the things that we, think a successful business looks like, not considering how much work it is. And especially in this day and age of social media and technology being the driving force of how people do business, those things can be intimidating if you don't know anything about them. And there were times that was where I struggled. But then I also learned there were people who were better at that than me. So when I paid, like, my first contractor, I was like, oh, my gosh, I have an employee. So just seeing how things can morph, and knowing that if I'm doing it for somebody else, I definitely can do it for myself. So I think it's always been in me, because I've said it for, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 years. But when I look back on all of the training programs that I've invested in personally, I will say my first taste of entrepreneurship was in 2006. And now we are, 11 years into it? And you know how we oftentimes look at people and say, oh, wow, they're doing well. It's not you can be an overnight success, but in order to be successful and have longevity and sustainability, you really have to take your time. You do, because you want to make sure, just like any other major corporation, that you got the right people working for you. Because the vision goes beyond just what you see. You have to have people to implement, and that's one of the things that I learned and I have embraced as a woman CEO, because you can't do it all. You just can't.
There were three things you said I just want to make sure the listeners heard, particularly as Black women, right? You don't have to do it alone, right? Building a team, asking for help can be really difficult for us because of the whole strong Black womanhood. So I love that you're talking about you don't have to do this alone. The second one that caught me was, and I just want to repeat what you said. You said, if I can do it for myself, I can definitely do it for someone. Or you said, no, if I can do it for someone else, I can definitely do it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That is so important, because many of the women who are in our Black Women Rise and Black Women CEO community, you all are rock stars, right? Like they're out there rocking the career, but once we start to step over to this realm of entrepreneurship, the self-doubt starts of like, well, can I really do this? And like you said, like if I did it for them, I can definitely do it for me.
And I think what we realize too, or should realize, you get so much joy and satisfaction knowing that you built it. It was your dream. It was your baby. And now look at where you are. Yeah. Even if you sell an Avon, that takes skills. You have to find clients. It's the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you decide to do, whatever type of business you desire to have, the concepts and the principles are the same as Johnson & Johnson, these big name companies that we see out there. And most organizations, what a lot of people may not realize, they are looking to do work with small businesses, and especially minorities. Yep. So we have the ability to create our own wealth. We do.
minorities and women,
Yeah.
women-owned businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So Black women, we're uniquely qualified.
We are uniquely qualified, and they waiting for us to show up and just ask. And that's another thing we're afraid to ask. We're afraid.
I love
But
it.
there is no fear. I just made this up. There is no fear in success.
Ooh, say it again.
Yeah, there's no fear in success. If you want to be successful, fear shouldn't even exist. It should be about tenacity. I still think confidence, and I like what you said, courage. And you have to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you said that
you are the best project that you can work on is you.
Ooh, I hope you all are getting all these golden nuggets from Christi. You know, she already said, and even within this last statement, that you're valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing you have to realize, that you're valuable.
No matter what others told you.
That's right, no matter what others told you, are inherently valuable, right? I love Marianne Williamson when she says you are a child of God. Like, you're already born into this world powerful and valuable just because you exist. And I love the last thing I just want to pull out so that folks really hear it, is that this takes time, right? This is a marathon. It's not, you know, we hear a lot of the get rich quick and even some of those businesses that are traditionally under that model. It takes time still. You got to learn. You got to learn the model, learn how to do the selling and the skills and all those pieces. This takes time, right? And one client I had recently, she mentioned some of her hesitation to share in a group setting because she was like, oh, I feel like I have to have it all together. And I was like, none of us have it all together, or we have pieces of it and we're still learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what level of entrepreneurs you're around, like you said, you've been doing this for 11 years now, it takes time, right? It's going to have different iterations as you get training and coaching and mentorship. So we will never have it all together. You and I both have some of the same millionaire mentors, and we know that they are constantly saying that they're growing, even as they're still hitting these big milestones.
Yeah. So, no, it's a process, but it's a process worth going through, because I can say just over the last 2 years, me being in several masterminds, I've met women that I would not have ever met in my life had I not decided to get out of my own way and seek out the mentorship that I need, because, you know, they said you don't have to recreate the book. There are people out there doing what you do. It goes back to just like what I said, mentorship, sponsorship. It's there. We just have to go out and get it. But be mindful when you do it, because just like when I talked about the core values, you have to find the right fit.
Yeah.
Just like any other relationship, you have to find the right fit. You have to find the right fit. You just have to do that. So it's been good. It's been great for me, because I wouldn't have gone to Hawaii had I not been in the Happy Black Woman Mastermind. So,
so
it also has its perks.
My roomie in Hawaii that February.
Yes.
We've roomed together quite a bit now that I think about it.
Yes, we have.
Love rooming with Dr. Christi.
Yeah, because we did it twice, I believe.
Yeah.
So, So when you find a good connection, keep it.
Yes, that goes back to what we were saying, that cultivating relationships, right? Of course, in the traditional workplace, we want to do it, but even on this entrepreneurship journey, right, having your sister CEOs, people who understand the walk that you're on, and that's invested in your success as much as their own, is truly important. So that's my golden nugget for today.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So what were some of your early challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them on this entrepreneurship journey?
Oh, some of the earlier obstacles that I faced, I wanted to give up because I didn't understand. And that goes back to wanting to be perfect. You know, the things that you're good at, you're naturally good at. But when I felt like I had to learn something totally new, I didn't know what questions to ask. One, because I didn't want to seem dumb. I didn't. But the reality was, it was something new that I had to learn. And things normally came easy to me like when I was younger, but I realized in this journey I had to sit down and study the things that I didn't know. And then once I got out of my own way and realized where I was weak, that was the first obstacle that I overcame, because that taught me to ask people for help. You know, I did go to a place to where I was like reading up on stuff, but then when it was taking too much of my energy, I said, I got to get somebody else to help me with this, or just do it. I also think that one of the things that I struggled with was, I already said, asking for help. I really didn't leverage my coaches the way that I should have. I would listen and kind of watch other people, and I think part of that was because I had an internal struggle of what I wanted to do, but then others were saying you should do this and you should do that, and I kind of let some people switch lanes for me, but then I actually ended up coming to a place to where I stopped and really got clear. It goes back to clarity and being anxious. I think that was a bad thing, because, like what you said, you know, there's not anything specific to get rich quick. It's all a process, and I just think that being able to recognize where I was weak, where I needed help, asking a question even if it did sound dumb, and really, really tapping into the knowledge of my coaches. Those were the obstacles that I needed to overcome. And what that did, I went, and this is being transparent, from one program to the next. But what I learned through that is, even though I was still uncomfortable in some spaces, every coach that I had was a person who I needed at that time, which has helped me to become the woman, the business owner that I am right now. So it's almost like being in school. I didn't flunk, but I didn't pass all my tests.
I just thank you so much for your transparency, because you really spoke to many of the common barriers of success, and that I guess it could be like stages of change or stages of growth that we have on this path, particularly when we're investing in ourselves through investing in programs, right? And still, like you said, not wanting to feel like, you know, sometimes it's the way that we were even socialized, like, especially when you were the top student and you're so used to, like, everyone calling you brilliant and you got it right, and now you're in a setting where everything is new and you're like, is this a dumb question? I don't even have the knowledge to know if this is a dumb question or not.
Right.
But
Do you have any questions? No, but I did.
Right. Getting to that point where you're just like, I'm going to put it out there, right? And one, to know truly there aren't any dumb questions, right? You're learning. But it's like, you know, many of us come to entrepreneurship after we've been professionals for a while, we finish advanced degrees, and it is like starting all over with training wheels when you're in, you know, starting this entrepreneurship journey. You know, it's a whole nother mode of operating that you're learning. So thank you for sharing that. I know that definitely someone needed to hear that. And to me, it's always a good reminder to think about where we are or were at those beginning stages, even as we work with women who are there now. So that was great. So how have you integrated work and business, life, self-care, and family through all this?
Woo. So at first I used to be all over the place, but I really, really use my calendar. I've already scheduled all of my vacation for this year. I sit down. I'm getting good at it, but I'm not 100%. I look at my calendar and plan my month. And then I also incorporate downtime. Well, I may not do anything in my business for 3 days because I need to regroup. And that's when I go to get my massage, get my pedicure, my manicure, you know, just decompress. and then come back hard, as I say, going hard in the paint. So one is recognizing when you're depleted. And I have a good gauge of when I'm overwhelmed because I work really, really slow. And I don't feel like I'm making any traction. But what I've also learned to do is take bite-sized pieces. So let's just say, like yesterday, I said, okay, I'm going to send an email. I'm going to write this email. And that's all I did for that day. So I felt accomplished because I did just that. I didn't try to put all 5 things that I need to do this week in one day, spreading it out. And it just helped remove the overwhelm. And as far as family, you know, sometimes you can't get away with that, but the one thing that I'm blessed with right now is all of my family's in Texas. And I'm in, you know, the D.C. area. So it's a little bit easier for me to balance family outside of the 10 phone calls a day from my mother and, you know, the 2 from my sister and, you know, all of that type of stuff and just being Aunt Christi. But it makes it a little bit easier not being in the same place. And I know everybody doesn't have that flexibility, but I also include visiting family as part of my self-care and my travel.
Yeah, it's sometimes good when family are not they're not in the same town. You can have some of that control and distance. And if you don't mind me asking, because I know we have women in different relationship stages, and you know, you're still in this, I guess, seeking a partner, if that's the best way in dating. How have you balanced that with the rigors of being an entrepreneur?
One, I'm just going to keep going back to core values. I don't just date to be dating. I'm very honest about who I am and what I do when there is a love interest. And what I've found is a lot of times they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm just equally as busy. But then when they realize how busy I am, you just don't have time for a relationship. And again, goes back to my directness. I'm typically upfront and honest. But what I can say is that here lately I've met men who are just as busy as I am. And it goes all back to, you know, with anything, taking your time just to really see how well you mesh, even as a friendship. Because if they're not understanding, it'll be very, very hard. It'll be very, very hard. Now, I will say, since we do use technology, I've done online dating, and I dibble and dabble in it. But it's because I don't have time to go out. But I do think that is a great way to meet people, but you can't let dating consume your time, and you have to be in a place where you either prioritize dating or you prioritize business. And right now, my priority is my business.
Thank you for sharing that, letting me go there, because, you know, one of my goals is so that it's not just, at least our series here, is not just about, oh, here's how you do business. It's how do you actually create the lifestyle, right? The lifestyle one you desire and building your business around it. And so I love that you said, you know, there may need to be a season for each one, right, as you get structures in place and all these things. And then it's like, maybe how do you bring then a mate in or start, you know, developing that and pursuing that or inviting it in. Because Christi don't speak men.
It's good. I mean, you know, but life is good right now, so I don't have any complaints. I've met someone nice, and I'm just taking it really, really slow. He's just as busy as I am, and, you know, I try to keep an open mind when it comes to that. And what I would say to anybody who's single, always treat any man that you meet as a friend. And not have any expectations simply because, you know how we get mad and we create these stories in our head. I called him and he didn't call me back. Or I'm not calling him no more. But what would you do if that was one of your best friends or your girlfriends? Will you call? they don't return a call, you're not going to be mad at them. You're not going to stop talking to them. But you may, the next time you talk to them, where you been? How are things going? But we jump to this space of wanting to be in a relationship so bad that we enjoy building a friendship. And that would be the same thing that can happen in business. So just jump in. You don't count the cost, and you're so anxious. So
I love that, the friendship piece. And I'm learning that as a newlywed, still making time while still building my business to maintain my friendship with my husband. So I think either way, it's that time of seeing them as your friend, right? And not just like, well, you go pick up the kids and you go do this, no matter what stage you are, whether single or in partnership. Is really honoring those relationships, right? And honoring them as people, right? I love how you said, how will you treat your girlfriend, right? Because we often honor our girlfriends as people, right? We know that they have things to do and they're busy, and it's like, how can we honor our love interests, whether men or women, whatever you're into, right? The same way, like anyone that we're romantically interested in or in partnership with. So thank you for bringing that. I love that. Be their friend, honor them as a friend. So I know you mentioned the calendar piece. So how do you go about setting your goals for your business and executing as well as staying focused on them?
I actually set, I want to call, we know it in business, SMART goals. I look to see, one, what I would like to make. So like I've already said what I wanted to make for this year. And I divided that goal by 12. And looking at the things that I offer and the platforms that I'm typically on, I calculate or back into those things. So let's just say I want to make $10,000 for the first quarter. So what could that look like? That could be, 3 private coaching clients. It could be, a 6-week class with 10 students, or it could be 2 speaking engagements. So I kind of back into what it is, the goal is, and what's the best way for me to meet that goal. But oftentimes I look at benchmarking. So like this time last year, I spoke in Australia, and I think I might have did a conference or something. So that has come around again to where they wanted me to come out and speak. So I'm strategically looking at like my last year to see what does this year look like. And I think that's what every CEO should do. When you are planning, strategic planning, you have to look at the year before or times before to see, well, what did this look like for me? How much revenue did this generate me? And what might I need to consider to do differently? And one of the things I will say that I've learned is do what you're good at. So I love to speak. If I could choose any platform, I would speak, because when I do it, oh Lord, something just comes out of me. Then I would back into the one-on-one coaching, and then the group coaching. So I really try to hone in on the thing that I'm most passionate about. Not to say that the other things aren't, but because it's I don't want to use the word easier, because that's not the word, but it's where I get the most joy. So I think knowing how to schedule around all of those many things, because I know you can do like what we talked about, being all over the place, 5 or 6 things. I would say, as I think for me, I have 2 major things that I make sure that I do in my business at least quarterly. So just for me, it's just looking at what has helped me. I know I'm kind of all over the place with this one, but what has helped me reach my revenue goals. But it doesn't mean that I don't do the other things that are not revenue generating, such as, the strategy sessions, getting on a call with people just to see how we could probably best work together, because one of the things I do have is an influence IQ quiz. And that's where I look at the 4 key elements of leadership, people, communication, your personal productivity, and then how you lead. And that's me being able to see, one, what additional programs I need to create, and then how can I best work individually one-on-one with women, because a lot of us may not be good in group settings. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I found for me. If I and when I work with a coach, I would much rather work one-on-one because I'm more focused. But that doesn't necessarily mean that works for everyone else. So I'm flexible in how I schedule, but I know what my main go-to things are to generate revenue, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it definitely does. And the larger, I guess, theme I hear you saying is, or what you've done, and it sounds like definitely our listeners can benefit from, is, you took what you learned, you went and tested it, right? And then you see, like, what you're the most passionate about, what brought the most revenue, and then also where those, like the Venn diagram, where those two overlap, right? And so that's what I heard you say when you were speaking. And one thing, this is more of a mindset, is that our gifts can be easy, right? It can be easy to make money when you start to do that in the work and get, have that reflection piece of, like, this speaking just comes to me, right? Like, God works through me when it happens, and I'm passionate, and it generates revenue. So that, we can definitely find, some people call it the sweet spot.
Yes.
And then it's like, how do I create more of those opportunities, right? Because that's how we can feel good in our business. It helps us show up because then we want to do the work, right, to get those opportunities. So that definitely, there's a lot of place, whether you're starting out, that you want to get to. And if you've been trying different things, start to do that reflection of, like, what has been feeling good? What has been generating revenue for you? And how can you do more of those things?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So we're segueing into our closing. So what is one piece of wisdom that you would share with the woman who is frustrated building her business and desires to become a rock star CEO? Or another way to look at this is, what do you wish someone told you when you started this journey?
What I wished someone had told me is that the money doesn't come instantly. You have to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, I guess, is saying that, and to expound on that, is you have to be willing to do the work and consistency, because it's just not going to come. Your business is only as good as the effort you put into building it.
Ooh, can you say that one again?
Your business, or the success of your business, is only as good as the effort you put into it. And so then that will go back to the money piece. So how much money do you want to make? Do you want to just, make $1,000, extra a month? And that could be the case. But if you're really striving to be, at some point in your life, a full-time entrepreneur, you're going to have to work hard at it. It's going to be sleepless nights. It's going to be you can't have a boyfriend right now. It may be you can't go on the trip with your girlfriends. It may be that you are going to have to make more sacrifices than you're willing to make or wanting to make, because you should. So that's what I would say.
That's a good word. I was actually just listening to another podcast, and I think the speaker was someone she had like 3 businesses and been in business for like 20 years to $1 million status. And one thing she said, she was like, we see so many images of the lifestyle entrepreneur. We think people are with their laptop on the beach. She was like, yeah, I've had those instances. But she was like, this is my job. She was like, luckily it's a job I created, but there's things I don't like to do. There's days I don't want to work. And, there's systems that I'm not the best at, and initially I had to do them until I could hire someone to do them. And so while, yes, we want to be passionate about our mission and have that drive in us, there will be things that maybe we don't like to do, but it is important to show up, right, get it done and almost be that professional in all this. And so that what you just said reminded me of what she was saying.
Yeah, and then I think the other piece to that, we all want people to hold us accountable, but you are accountable to yourself. You should be able to wake up in the morning and say, I'm doing this today. I don't feel like it. Be honest. One of the things we do at work, it's a mood exercise. So before the meeting starts, everybody goes around and uses one word for their mood because then it helps you become present. You're in the now. So I'm tired. So now when, we all sitting in the room in the meeting, you're tired, you sleepy, you excited, you're fearful, but those things have been put out. So now they're no longer resonated in you because you've spoken them out. You've gotten that out. So get up in the morning when you don't feel like it. I'm tired, but I'm going to do this. You know it. So it's not something that you're internalizing. You verbalized it. But on the other side of that, you set the intention about what you're going to do today, and you're not going to let being tired be the driving force behind you not getting what you needed to get accomplished for that day.
Thank you. I love that mood exercise. I think I am going to start doing that to help myself be present and release it.
Even on the coaching calls when you're in the groups, because a lot of times we're not paying attention because we're internalizing things. But when you bring it out, and what it also to me says, somebody cares how I feel. Somebody cares. Somebody's actually asking me what is my mood right now.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's interesting because I do that when I do live coaching. I never thought to do it like the virtual. So thank you for that piece of it. Definitely exercise I'm going to incorporate with my clients and it's to bring it to present, let people know because I do care. It's good to know where people are before you get started. So Christi, what's your personal mantra or motto or saying or quote that you live by?
My favorite quote, a mantra. So the favorite one that I use right now is be the voice and not the echo. It's time for your voice to be heard. You're not a second thought, and what you have to say is not second class. First class all the way. So it's time to be in a position to where what you have to say brings meaning and it adds or transforms someone else's life. So be the voice and not the echo, the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. So, yeah.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Love it. Be the voice and not the echo. I'm definitely going to put that. I feel like I had a Mary Jane moment. I'm like, where's my Post-it?
Well, sometimes I think that the writers took my life, and I need to ask them for some royalties. Being Mary Jane.
They were watching you, Christi.
Oh, yeah, being Christi. Yeah, and it's so funny because when I watch it, I text my best friend. I say, "Who does that sound like?" And I know we're ending our time, but it was the one episode where she said that she was not stepping in to her family's problems. And I had just said that day. I said, I cannot take it on. I'll call y'all back. I just couldn't do it any longer because they become so dependent on me, and they needed to learn how to solve it themselves. So I get her. But I am not,
there's so many
randomly,
of us, different elements that resonate with that, different aspects of our black woman on that journey.
Right. Yeah.
It's a good show. It's a good show. If you haven't seen it, go check out BET Centric Being Mary Jane.
On Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
I know. Go get some sponsorship for the podcast.
Yeah.
So this is our last question here, at least my last question. What's the number one success strategy or tip you would give to the woman who is in the early phases of building her business?
Be honest with yourself about what you don't know, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
I love it. One line, but we've echoed this throughout the whole conversation. So,
yeah.
That's definitely.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Because there is going to be a lot that you don't know. And there will be.
That's right. You have a right to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve to get help. Mm-hmm.
And especially when you get a mentor or a coach, that's what they're there for. Because if just like, you and I, we both do an element of teaching. If nobody asks a question, you think that everybody understands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to leverage them. You have to. They're the experts. You have to.
Well, thank you for that strategy. So this was great. I loved it. Thank you so much, Soror, Dr. Christi, for coming on.
Well, thank you, Sarah. That's what Deltas do.
Yes, Delta. Yeah, just so we be clear that people know.
Yeah, let us tell them who we are. Yeah.
Right.
So I appreciate your platform. Again, just working with you personally, I know what you stand for. I support you wholeheartedly, and even though we're no longer working together, I think, for the accountability and even for you reaching out to, like, Christi, do you need any help? Do you need anything? Still always willing to be there, because I think one of the things that's most important when you're looking for a coach or a mentor, that they don't just go away. It's still building that relationship. And I think that's one thing that's very important, because I would probably want to know, after this relationship is over, what does that look like? And not that you have to be with anybody who's going to continue to work with you and any of that. And it's not about building this friendship or turning things into that, but some things are just meant to be just that. And I think that I've been blessed enough to have the women and in my circle who coached me and mentored me, and they still remained accessible.
Thank you for that. And, I mean, one thing that we've been lucky is that we started out as friends. And I tell this as part of my story often, that, like, my first, you can say, high-paying clients, or when I really kind of honed in on, like, I think this is where I want to be, this is my expertise, they were my friends, they were my mastermind sisters. And I think sometimes people feel that, you shouldn't offer your services to friends, or if you see that they're in need. That's actually how it came. I saw you were in need, and I was like, hey, I could help you with that. Let's
remember, we were in the room.
Right. I can't
remember I don't even remember what your business was, and we started talking. It was like, that's it. And by the time we left, I think the next day or two, you done sent me a contract. And everything, I thought this was just an idea. But no, it was like, sign me up. Yeah, so, that's exactly how it started.
Yeah, and like how I tell people, I said one way to do that is ask, like, I can formally help you with that, right? Because there's definitely things you can do with your friends, but then it's like when we're in a formal, client, coach, or whatever your, service, whatever type of service provider you are, relationship, there is a different level of intensity and, and the way both of people show up to the situation. So, don't be afraid that if you see that your folks close to you could use your services, offer it. Try to work it out. Pilot it, right? That's what we did. We piloted it. We're like, well, let's see how this works for 90 days, right? And go from there. So, and, Christi and I can talk for hours and hours about lots of things. So, Christi, how can folks stay connected with you and get into your community and the confidence feed and in your life?
Well, they can actually go to my website, which is Christi Monk, ChristiMonk.com. Follow me on Twitter at Christi Monk, Instagram at Dr. C.E. Monk. And if you're interested in understanding your level of influence, you can take my free Influence IQ quiz, because it's a tongue twister, at youriqquiz.com, and that is 2 Qs. So also look for me to bring the Women with Beauty, Brains, and Boundaries tour to your city. I was in Dallas last year, and so I have 3 stops planned for this year, Dallas, Texas again, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta, Georgia. Dates coming soon.
Ooh, can't wait to get that out. And we will make sure that all the ways you can get in contact with my Dr. Christi, my soror, is in our show notes so that you can just click and go. But thank you again, Dr. Christi. Much appreciated. And everyone out there, remember, power is the ability to create your reality. Until next time.
Yes, it is. And until then, be confident, be bold, and be you. And thank you for allowing me to share on your platform.
Thank you. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and for more Black Woman CEO wisdom and expert tips, please visit blackwomanceo.com. So this is your host, Quanisha Green, signing off. Until next time, remember, power is the ability to create your reality.